He's author of The Unsinkable Aircraft Carrier and the amazing book War Plan UK, which I talked to him about, and which describes what would happen if there was a world war broke out in Europe. And it would be quite frightening. Actually, quite a lot of Americans would suddenly turn up and start commandeering and taking over various parts of the UK. Speaking to me earlier this week. And in the backdrop to all of this, of course, we've got the Bilderberg conference going on this week. And I hope I'm joined on the line now by Charlie Skelton over in Madrid. Are you there, Charlie?
I hope so. Well, I'm here. I think I'm here.
Yes, okay, right. Can you just give us a bit of a flavour of the participants and the venue this year?
Certainly. Well, the venues are not as luxurious as they usually are. But it's, if anything, it is more secure and more private than I, in my sadly long experience, has ever seen. I mean, people are getting almost no photographs. Everyone's being kept very, very carefully away. It's the participant list has come out. They have at least published that, and a kind of slightly thin agenda. And we are now sort of just, here covering it as best we can, this sort of raggle-taggle crew.
Yeah, well, the problem is, surely, that if it's difficult to get photographs, there may be people sneaking in and out, as we've had in previous years, like the main negotiator for the Swedes joining NATO was at last year's meeting in Lisbon, and he wasn't on the list, so that this may be the case this year. I mean, who have you spotted, or have people spotted?
Well, Josh Friedman got a photograph of the King of Spain coming in.
Wow.
And which, it's one of those things where we would never have been able to report on it. But he happened, the light fell in just the right way on the tinted window, and he got a great photo. And, and I'm not saying that the King of Spain participated in the meetings, but he certainly went there to Gladham and.
Is he on the list? Is he on the list, though?
No, he's not on the list.
No, this is it. This is the point, isn't it? How can you have the King of Spain being there and not on the list?
I know. But they would say, and I know this from long and tired experience, that he's not participating in the conference itself. He's just visiting the hotel.
No, what he'll be doing is he'll just...
But the conference itself is more than just a series of debates. It's the whole experience of meeting people and
schmoozing,
and in the most a high level way, and climbing up the greasy pole and all of that, and sort of getting the nod for top jobs and that kind of thing, which that is a key part of it. So the King of Spain has at least paid a visit. That much we know.
What about the backdrop to all of this with the agenda? We know a lot about. In fact, you've got two things to do with AI right at the very start. It seems to me almost the star of the show is Alex Karp from Palantir. Yeah. He's now kind of at the forefront of this whole concept of, oh dear, we can't get human beings to kill each other. So what we can do is we can get Alex Karp's software to identify them and wipe them out. And in a way, he's the man who will allow computers to take over warfare. And obviously, can you just say something about this idea of software and warfare? Because this is very much a kind of NATO-oriented group, isn't it?
Totally. And Karp's very interesting because he's one of the... obviously now, this is the first Bilderberg, I should say, without Henry Kissinger for a long time. Yeah. He couldn't make it because he passed over into whatever realm he now inhabits or rules. And he was obviously one of the great ideologues of Bilderberg. And, see... into that vacuum, who's going to step? Let's see. I mean, it could be Karp, who's extremely outspoken and talks, openly about his kind of philosophy of life, philosophy of business, etc., etc. Schmidt does the same, the former head of Google. He's always talking, and he was, Kissinger's right-hand man and protege. And you've also got Peter Thiel, and he talks, theorizes quite a lot about the world. And they form a little kind of tech billionaire clutch within Bilderberg, and I think they're probably the most powerful kind of clique within this powerful clique.
Yeah, well, so Kissinger not being around, Charlie, is quite. I think it's in a way quite worrying. Some of his last words were about you're going to have to basically have a peace in Ukraine, draw a line. And have an armistice of some sort, and he was roundly had his knuckles wrapped for that. But he's an old hand at all this. He knows you can play your geostrategic games, but you mustn't be trying to provoke superpower confrontations, nuclear confrontations. And he's now out of the picture. So I wonder what you think this new little clutch, as you put it. Where are they coming from?
Well, they're all pretty psychotic, I suppose. Karp is he calls himself a progressive. He calls himself a peace activist and a progressive. But his main aim in life at the moment is just to super efficiently kill people and surveil them, and sometimes both. And so anyway, I don't think many of them, and Schmidt maybe a bit, have got the kind of, it's hard to say nice things about Henry Kissinger, but as you say, some kind of a calmer perspective on things. I think maybe he had a calmer perspective because he was in his late 90s and didn't have his hand on the nuclear button anymore. So I don't know. But,
I don't think Kissinger ever wanted to provoke a nuclear war. He wanted to provoke any other war, but not a nuclear one.
No, right. So Karp is, his sort of statement of intent is he says that we just need to throw as much money at tech defence and build weapons that will, and he literally says, scare the F-U-C-K out of your enemies. He just wants to dominate and destroy and build the machines that will do that. And there's another very interesting guy there this year who is the guy who designed the Oculus VR headset. He's called I think he's called Palmer Luckey, something like that. So he's another tech billionaire who's a generation younger, and he got bored of making gaming headsets and wanted to make autonomous tanks instead and autonomous flying vehicles. And so there's a lot of people who are big on AI, autonomous weaponry, and automated warfare. And I think David Petraeus has started to say, because he's got a book out, so the former CIA director and Bilderberg regular, he has got a book out on warfare, I think, at the moment, and he's sort of talking it up and talking about, drones being the future. And Eric Schmidt said the future of warfare is drones. And literally one of the sessions is called The Future of Warfare. And so, I think that, they're sort of coldly pragmatic, this crowd. They just go, okay, what's next? What's the next thing? Let's do that. Let's just, okay, so it's AI-powered drones, fine. Let's just build the best one of those. What's the best system we can get that can just target people and snipe them from a drone? And
but it's a sort of
whether they're Gaza or Ukraine,
Yeah, so it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, this, isn't it? It's a bunch of people who are trying to sell their technology to a bunch of financial people who want to it's something good to invest in. So it's almost as if the whole politics of it is out the window. It's almost just like a kind of investment party. But the trouble is that these people have now lobbied so successfully and so hard. They're pretty much in control of most of the policy and the politics in Western Europe and the States.
Well, you've said the key word, I think, which is in control. And I think what scares them about AI, because obviously it's a huge boon for whether it's surveillance tech or banking or healthcare or anything, literally everything is now infused with AI and is getting more so. But one of the sessions this year is on AI safety. It's one of the 2 AI sessions. And they know it's a problem because they're building this thing and they're all in on it, as in their chips all in, is what I mean. And they're building this thing which they kind of know they can't control. And there's an interesting video of Demis Hassabis, who's the CEO of Google DeepMind, and he's a Bilderberg regular. He's here this year in Madrid, talking very recently about how he thinks that, yes, AI, or he's talking about AGI, and artificial general intelligence, is going to create. He calls it a bottleneck for humanity, but he says he's optimistic that they can navigate through this and build the right architecture so that he can, and then he becomes an tech evangelist. He says literally, a radical new era of abundance and curing all diseases and taking our consciousness to the stars. And if you listen to what he's saying, that's religious language. I mean, it's apocalyptic language, and it's he's describing some kind of, as it were, post-human state that would have been described as heaven in years gone by. And, he's literally, he doesn't know he's doing that, by the way, I don't think. I think he's just describing a cool state of affairs. But not everyone shares his optimism. And I think Bilderberg, because there are so many people there that own so much and control so much, that I think they see AI with a slightly, fearful eye, because what is this thing? They've suddenly realised there's going to be stuff happening that not only they don't control and understand, but no one does. Only AI does. So it's going to start talking to itself and to other AIs in ways that we can't comprehend. It already does this. It already performs tasks that humans can't comprehend, etc., etc. So they know they're building the beast in some form, and I think they're sort of both thrilled and scared, like everyone is in a horror movie that this world happens to now be.
Well, hopefully not everywhere, but certainly places like Ukraine and Gaza certainly seem to be going that way. AI safety, I suppose, really, what you're saying is that they're worried that some of these killing machines that they are building might come for them.
I mean, it's all the paperclip problem. It's telling AI to do something and misunderstanding the question and accidentally destroying the solar system, and etc., etc. But it's interesting, when Demis Hassabis says take consciousness to the stars, it's not clear that he means human consciousness. I think he just sort of means some kind of hybridized AI, basically AI, but some sort of thing that's some sort of consciousness is going to expand to the stars. But I think I think he just sort of thinks that. I think he thinks confusedly that human consciousness and AI consciousness are sort of the same thing. And, he should know better because he's one of the world experts in this.
Well, maybe he's just been watching too much Star Trek and dropping too much acid at the same time. That's not really the best way to pop for policy. But the scary thing is, he's there and he's with all these financial people saying, "Hey guys, this is the future." Look, what about the what about the crew that's over there? I'm so sorry I couldn't come. This year, it's just too expensive for me this year. Some years I can manage it, some I can't. It's accommodation in Madrid is extremely well. I don't know how you manage it really, but can you give us an idea about the crew? You've got a bunch of loyal people that do really dedicate themselves to this once a year, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's great that anyone turns up, but it's I would have hoped that it would be a slightly bigger crew by now, but it's still, there's been on and off about somewhere between 8 and a dozen people, which is not. And unfortunately, we've lost 2 of them today because 2 Dutch journalists who were here, really nice people, just really interested in geopolitics, very polite, just wanted to do some filming. A bunch of extremely heavy-handed undercover cops got around them in a cafe, really shouted at them, and really upset them, and they just left Madrid. So we're 2 down, and I haven't experienced that, I have to say, with the police here, but they really lost it with them, and I don't know why. But it's already thinned out. Giorgio Bombassei has gone home, unfortunately. He had other matters to attend to. But Dan Dix is here, Josh Friedman's here, and Federico's here. There's people and we've been retweeting each other and sharing images and what little tidbits that we do get. And we're doing what we can. It's far from easy. They don't make it, and I have to say they made it, as I was saying, they made it harder this year. It's tight as a drum, the security here.
So, just to talk a little bit about some of the UK participants, we've got BP, and in fact, I've started not talking about the names, but the businesses that they really represent, because it's almost as if, with that film, The Corporation, the Canadian film, that these are immortal creatures, these corporations, and it really doesn't matter who's popping up as the chief. It's the corporation that really counts. So, BP, Shell, and of course the press. Bloomberg is there. I mean, I don't know if they're British or Tory, but I think the guy is a Brit that runs Bloomberg now, Micklethwaite. Then you've got the editor of the Economist. I mean, this is a sort of energy media thing, isn't it? But it's not, and it's not just. Sorry.
There's a lot of journalists there this year. Yeah. Something before they left, the Dutch journalists gave me an interesting tidbit. So they pointed out that there are 2 journalists from the Dutch newspaper NRC or media group, and that is owned by, they pointed out, a media group that is run by Thomas Leysen, who is a Belgian industrialist, and he's on the board of Bilderberg. So there's 2 sort of pet journalists here from this particular Dutch media organisation. But he also pointed out that one of the other Dutch attendees, who is the main shareholder of Heineken, so she's actually Freddie Heineken's daughter. She's Charlene de Carvalho. Her actual name is Charlene de Carvalho Heineken, but she decided to leave Heineken off the participant list. I guess she felt embarrassed. But anyway, her father, Freddie Heineken, was best friends with Bernhard.
Oh.
So, and Bernhard's grandson, the King of Holland, is here. So I wonder whether she's there perhaps for the 70th, the 70-year anniversary, because it was 70 years just on the day before 70 years since the first conference kicked off, and the day before this conference did. So anyway, going back to the journalists, yes, they are, technically they're journalists, but, they're such sort of travesties of journalists. At least the financiers and asset managers and bank bosses aren't doing anything they're just doing what you would expect of them. Whereas journalists, you sort of go, oh, really? Is this what you thought being a journalist was going to be? Not reporting on something. It's like it's a complete antithesis of journalism. And yet they all go, no, fine, I'm going to sit here and get the pearls of wisdom and share our perspectives and then go away and kind of, internalise our consensus or whatever, however exactly it works. But yes, it always really depresses me to see the journalists.
Yeah, it is.
But also, particularly when it's so blinking hard for the journalists who are outside and so tough and so unforgiving, and and they're clinking champagne glasses, or it's slightly galling.
Collaborators.
Exactly, shoot them.
Yeah, well, there is this guy, I think it's a guy, Christopher Cavoli, Supreme Allied Commander Europe.
Yes.
Also, of course, you've got Stoltenberg from NATO. This week, Charlie, there's been all this. We've just been reporting on the attacks on the Russian strategic nuclear defence systems. There's also this report yesterday circulating around Europe about Russia has started a massive campaign of sabotage, setting fire to things, etc. around Europe, and also the American B-52 bombers, presumably nuclear armed, circling around Kaliningrad. So there seems to be an upping of the ante, and it seems to be very much less to do with fighting for the east of Ukraine or trying to make a peace there at all, but much more about a NATO versus Russia war. So it's a little bit concerning about having all these people hobnobbing with all the financial people who will stand through the good old disaster capitalism to make an absolute fortune on any war.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it was very concerning to see the session title of their Ukraine section here at Bilderberg, which is Ukraine and the World. It's not just Ukraine, it's Ukraine and the world. There's a real unpleasant whiff of World War about that phrase. And, the perspective suddenly has got wider, as you say. And yes, and with Stoltenberg here, he attends pretty much every Bilderberg, and Christopher Cavoli, he's been a few times now. And so he's like the number 2, I think, military leader in NATO, and very, very, very senior. And as the name Supreme Allied Commander Europe does suggest. And so Stoltenberg's here. He's about to leave the Secretary General position at NATO, and his successor is thought to be Mark Rutte, the Dutch Prime Minister. I think he's got almost all of the nominations in the bag. I think it's about 3 outstanding votes, but it looks like he's going to get it. So it's very, it's very much an inside man for Bilderberg, because Rutte is always going along. He's definitely one of the team, even though he's not on the steering committee. So Stoltenberg will be, I'm sure, addressing everyone, and who knows? I mean, to be honest, Stoltenberg's leaving just the right time. It's whatever's about to happen isn't going to happen on his watch.
Now, I know you try and tease a little bit of comedy out of all of this, and of course there is a massive aspect of absurdity to these people thinking that they can just carry on in the way they do, controlling politics, and no one will be interested, and undermining democracy. But have you managed to actually find anything comic about this year's event, Charlie?
Gosh, have I? Look, I've written a piece for The Guardian. It's not got up yet, so touch wood it will. And I don't really put that many jokes in anymore. I used to write like really quite stupid, not stupid, but quite silly pieces about Bilderberg. But now it's got more and more serious and more newsy what I write. But I did make one joke about Henry Kissinger not being here, which I thought was funny. I hope they don't cut it, but we'll see. Because sometimes they just cut the jokes out. Because I have to say I've been. I'm not saying, oh my God, I'm censored by the media. I'm really not. Except they sometimes cut my jokes out because I just think they find them annoying.
Look, the thing is, the whole thing is that there is an air of absurdity, though, isn't there? Don't you think, about the idea that these people think they can carry on in this fashion, where actually what they're doing is they're undermining everything that the West is supposed to be about, the whole sort of democratic checks and balances, and also normally there are British MPs there. We haven't really, I mean, unless any of them get spotted by Josh and his eagle telephoto lens. Is it just, you think, the general election that's meant that they're not really interested in these British participants?
Definitely. They always have a kind of, people sort of step away when they get too involved in politics generally. So, for example, what's he called? Radoslaw Sikorski, who is the now Polish foreign minister. So he was on the steering committee when he was I think he was an MEP, but then he's too senior now. He's stepped away from the steering committee. And that happened as well with the current head of the CIA, who he just joined. So William Burns, he just joined the Bilderberg steering committee, then got offered the job as head of CIA, so immediately left again. So it's like, and I think it's a smaller version of that with the British, the UK election. I think that it's just too much to do it now. So much as I'm sure David Lammy particularly would love to be here in his run up to being Foreign Secretary.
Yeah, if they let him in.
Yeah, exactly. There was for those of you who don't know, that's a reference to David Lammy managing to somehow not get into the conference last year. Following Ed Ball's efforts, I remember.
Yes, that's right, a few years before.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, look, let's just wind up by mentioning a certain Mr. John Soares, the executive chair of is it New Bridge Advisory Group? But he's being a bit cheeky, isn't he, by not mentioning his other job?
Yes. Yeah, he's a director of BP. And, it's weird that he wants to be called that, because that's just his private company that he just does his... it's just him. I think maybe his wife's the director.
Yes, for tax avoidance.
It's just tax. So I don't... It's just slightly embarrassing. But, there's other versions of that on here. So one of them... Sometimes they just don't put what they really are. So, the one who's... She's got an executive job at Coca-Cola here, but I can't remember. Oh yeah, she's a Spanish delegate, and she's the chair of some Euro-Pacific Coca-Cola sort of subsidiary. But actually, she's a director of Banco Santander, which is the host company for this year's conference, and Anna Batan is the executive chairman of that. So, that's not really what she is here. What she is here is a director of the bank that's hosting Bilderberg. You often have to dig a little bit into what people say.
Yeah, they're cheeky. They're very cheeky, and they do take the mickey. So Soares, also former MI6 Director General, as well as BP. So that seems to be what's going on. We've got intelligence services, we've got massive energy companies appointing each other, but actually they're not even writing that down here. So if anyone just happens to take a cursory look, then... Anyway, look, so Charlie, can you just tell us where you are? You're obviously in some nice bar. You're having dinner there?
Well, I will be. I'm sorry.
No, it's nice. Very good atmosphere. It sounds very congenial.
Yeah, it's very congenial. They're very nice. They've offered us a table for the Champions League final, but unfortunately, I just don't care. So I don't think I'll do that. But maybe I need to just muster up caring about it for the course of an evening. I'll probably have a better time.
Maybe as a bit of a distraction. Anyway, look, could you just wind up by letting us know whereabouts good places might be for people to actually follow what's going on, since the mainstream press, as usual, is ignoring everything? The most important thing in the world really going on now. Our real political leaders are sort of Fourth Reich get-together of accelerationists, and yet no one seems to be interested in the future. But anyway, so yeah, whereabouts might be good places to follow what's happening?
Well, to be honest, I would say just hashtag Bilderberg, put that into Twitter, Bilderberg Madrid, Bilderberg 2024, and have a look around Twitter, because that's X.com. Everyone seems to be putting their stuff out there. And you'll find, Dan and Josh and Federico and Christina, a Spanish journalist who's here. You'll soon pick up on who's doing what.
And what's the chat from the people that you are coming out of the conference? Is there going to be a world war or not?
Sorry, what? What people are chatting to me?
No one is talking to you, but I guess people inside. Maybe some of the bar staff afterwards. We can have a little chat with them. Anyway, Charlie Skelton, thanks very much for your time.